Welcome to April's Garage. I think we all can agree cars are getting really, really expensive. But there was recently a journalist, Erin Marquise. She flew to South Korea to take a closer look at Genesis. And
well, they flew her, I assume.
right,
Yes.
they flew her on a lavish trip, which we never get to go on these lavish press tours.
We never get invited on these press trips, which would be nice, but our opinions are usually unvarnished, which I found it kind of interesting with Erin. She got all this nice stuff done in Korea with Genesis, and then she just poops all over them, doesn't she?
I mean, she's stating kind of the obvious where they're too expensive and they're getting very expensive. And that was kind of at the end of the article. At the beginning of it, she talks about how, they're courting her with like tea parties and excitement and dinners and it's all fancy, which then as a journalist, you're supposed to say, this is the most amazing thing ever. But I like that she was real about it.
I agree, but I do feel like it's a little bit harsh with the headline and all that stuff. But of course, this writer is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So Genesis is an offshoot of Hyundai, a luxury brand. They used to be within the Hyundai name, Hyundai Genesis, when they came out a long time ago. And I was a big fan of that original sedan.
Really?
So they were in the rental fleets everywhere.
Yeah.
And I always picked a Genesis sedan for my rental because the old previous rental that I got in every time, the Ford Crown Victorias and the Mercury Grand Marquis, they were gone. They were phasing all those out. So for years, I rocked the Genesises and loved them enough to buy one. I bought one with a 3.8, so the V6 one, for sort of my get-around car when I was opening Freddy's restaurants. And the rear-wheel drive in Kansas City with the snow in the hills, it was a big issue. It just wasn't good for the snow. It was kind of like a semi-sport sedan kind of boat, but it just didn't have any snow traction. So I sold it for a Prius, front-wheel drive. Crashed the Prius and then ended up in trucks for the rest of my Freddy stuff.
At first, they weren't going luxury. It was just an offshoot.
No, they were going luxury, but sort of like what Lexus did originally, going from Toyota to Lexus or Nissan with Infiniti. There was a price point where they're emulating Mercedes and BMW and Jaguar and all these fancy guys. They were way, way cheaper, like incredibly cheaper. And at the same time, they had this really nice Japanese quality with them. So you had this high quality and low price, and they sold. Genesis, the quality of the mechanicals, well, I did a whole video on one at the end of its rope. Now, it had 230,000 miles on it.
That's not fair.
I know, you saw the thing. It was used and abused and graffitied and all that stuff, but they're not known for high mileage as far as the engines. And is that the owners not doing their oil changes and their maintenance? Is it the quality of the cars? It's probably a combination of both. Because I feel like a Mercedes or a BMW or a Lexus can go through that third, fourth, fifth owner, that kid who never changes the oil, and last a whole lot longer with all their lights on and brake.
And not a woman.
Well,
because I hate changing the oil. Sorry.
It lasts a whole lot longer abused than the Hyundais, the Genesis.
Sure.
So they've decided to make them very expensive. That sedan that we reviewed was, it was $100 and something thousand, and it had everything, right?
Nice. It was pretty nice, but it still doesn't have that kind of luxury, like upstanding on a pedestal type of A-class type of car, I feel like.
It doesn't have that brand perception yet. So Lexus didn't have it at first. Obviously, they had to establish that. Infiniti didn't. Hyundai needed to do it with Genesis, which they've been trying, but it takes time. I mean, Lexus, I guess, was sort of an instant smash hit because the car was reverse engineered S-Class and pretty much invincible a tank. And they did a great job of the marketing. But it's a little harder to break into it nowadays. And I don't think Genesis really has done it enough yet to justify the prices. So it was over $100,000 for that one that we reviewed.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And it had everything. I mean, it walked towards us like it summoned
Korean massage fingers in the seats, as you had stated.
Who could forget the Korean massage seats? Yes.
But what I think she's saying as a worst time for this to come and for them to kind of elevate themselves is with all the tariffs. And South Korea, it sounds like they were having protests when she went there because their president was being impeached. So there's like a lot going on in Korea and
turmoil.
Tariffs. There's the turmoil in should they be still pushing these luxury cars? Because I feel like only one of them is made in the U.S. Did I read that?
I think so. It's one of the SUVs.
Right. And so, like, do they keep making them in their factories in South Korea, or do they need to pivot and make them all here in America? You know, we don't know what's going to happen.
Interesting. Well, yeah, the price point would certainly help. If these were, instead of the fully loaded one, $100,000, it was $70,000, then it's like 40 grand less than a base S-Class, and the fully loaded Genesis had more options. It would do a lot better than like a base S-Class is 110 and a fully loaded Genesis is 102. It doesn't work. It's too close. Lexus can get away with that nowadays because Lexus is a fully blown luxury brand, and Genesis, yeah, they've been around for 15 years now, but they just don't have that perception yet.
Not yet. And the comparable Mercedes, you're saying the S-Class outsold them more than double this past quarter.
Right.
So we don't know what's going to happen, but they have 2 new concept cars.
Right. So they decide to build cars that nobody's buying. A luxury giant coupe and convertible, which I think Mercedes has phased out their S-Class convertibles. Like nobody's building 2 doors because nobody buys them. So it's interesting that Genesis, again, trying to prove themselves as like a premier luxury automaker, is building things that people don't want.
Right.
And then getting rid of a car that people really like, which is like their base Genesis, this rear-wheel drive kind of a sporty sedan. At the same time, talking about canceling that because it doesn't fit with their perceptions.
Well, do they want to be competing with Hyundai, though, and their lower price point with the base price of that more affordable Genesis? Are they kind of stepping on themselves by doing that? Do they need to completely offshoot themselves and be a completely luxury brand?
Well, Nissan does it with Infiniti. You have the choice of the big Pathfinder or the QX70, same with other models.
Right.
Toyota and Lexus, like a fancy Avalon versus the Lexus. I mean, people had a choice there that was pretty close. And Chevy and Cadillac. I mean, it's a tale as old as time. So why not? Why not? And the sports sedan, the G70, maybe it's not doing as well, but it just seems weird. Okay, this is our lower price point car that starts in the 40s. That's fun and great looking, and let's axe that and just keep more expensive things. It seems counterintuitive to me.
I get what you're saying, but I think they should slash the G70 because I think that's the only one that's made here in America and make room for the very, very high-end, fancy schmancy Genesis and just kind of push themselves. Like I feel like they need a flagship, like cool, crazy, wild supercar, something to like kind of make them next level. Do you know what I'm saying?
A mid-engine Korean supercar, hypercar.
Right.
Like sort of like a C8 Corvette.
Right? Am I crazy? I mean, I know I'm crazy, but am I crazy about this?
Well, is there a Japanese mid-engine sports car? So the NSX is done, right? The NSX Type S was the end.
Yeah.
So Japan's not doing it right now. Korea, whoa. Whoa, they need to hire you at Hyundai Genesis right now to develop that.
I'm available. I have Barrett-Jackson at the end of the month, and I'm getting married in June. But after that, I'm totally free.
That would be really cool if they used their Tau V8 with the E-supercharger that they had in the big sedan. It's a great motor. I mean, it's like a leaf blower supercharger to give it extra power, basically
like
electric.
A leaf blower.
Well, it's an electric supercharger to give it extra
Genesis,
boost.
the luxury band, and it's just like a leaf blower.
It's good power. It's good power.
That's how they say in Kansas, good power.
That in a mid-engine car, that because the styling, that's the one thing with Genesis. I love what they do with the styling. Yeah, some of them hit, some of them miss, but they're different.
Well, now these new 2 concept cars, they're talking about it being like Mediterranean, and the colors they debuted are like red wine and green olive, and they want it to be simplistic and rich like the Mediterranean.
I mean, it kind of looks like that Rolls-Royce Sportail that they were selling for $1 billion. So yeah, they're kind of copying, but then at the same time, Hyundai too, their styling of their cars is very bold and polarizing, but not like offensive, like, oh, that's weird. Not like people with Tesla seeing the Cybertruck and thinking it's the most hideous thing in the world. Like that kind of polarizing. It's just like, or wow. It's one or the other. It's not like eliciting like crazy reactions. But still, yeah, I'm a fan of Genesis. I'm a fan of Hyundai. I have owned a few. I had the Equus after that, which had reclining massaging seats in the back and all these things. So I'm a fan of the brand. I want it to do well, but I am worried.
Right. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Their prediction, Genesis says they want to do a 19% increase in sales each and every year, which is quite a lot. I feel like a lot of automakers only kind of can raise, a couple points, but 19% increase. They've got big dreams.
Are going backwards.
Right.
And there is an opportunity there because Genesis actually builds like old school luxury. They're not trying to make all their models sporty, like European, like chasing BMW, whatever. Cadillac went that way. They tried to go sporty with their cars and get away from the old grandpa Cadillac ride kind of stuff. And Genesis still does that. So I like that they sort of emulate sort of the Rolls-Royce style of old school luxury where you're insulated and it's quiet and it's smooth. And yeah, it may not handle the best, and yeah, it may not be as fast. So yeah, I definitely see an opening there for them to capitalize on that, especially with Jaguar kind of going crazy, because that was the other brand where they kind of had a lot of sort of the old school luxury feeling, at least in their sedans, at least to the higher end. So I do see it's possible, but not at the price point. I think people are very fed up and just price conscious, and they're done.
Well, and then now with the tariffs, 25% increase for South Korea.
Yes.
And actually, the dealership's saying that the consumer's not going to feel that. They're going to put out dealer incentives or take up the costs themselves, but that's going to cost a lot at the end of the day.
Well, that's the thing. All dealers are saying that, but all dealers have jacked up the prices so much in the last 4 or 5 years to try and chase the higher margins that when they do the big discounts, it's like they're still paying retail. And then the depreciation, I haven't looked it up for Genesis, but it's probably pretty high. A lot of luxury cars it is, but I know like a 1 or 2 year old Genesis is way, way cheaper. And that's how I tend to buy them. My Equus, which had the rear reclining and the massages and all that stuff, it was $50-something thousand new, and I got it for mid-teens.
Wow.
And it wasn't even that old and had like 60 or 70,000 miles on it or something like that. And it was an amazing machine. Yeah, having this big luxury sedan with that 5-liter V8 that did burnouts, but then just so insulated. I love that car. I sold it, and the kid who bought it immediately crashed it, unfortunately. But
Do you know what happened?
I think he fixed it, but I didn't hear after. Like, he bought it to do a road trip. Like, he was going to drive it cross country, and then he just immediately stuffed it like 2 hours away, and left it at a repair shop to get fixed because he broke the bumper. I think the air suspension even collapsed because he broke some bladder or whatever. So, yeah.
That's a bad day.
Parts weren't readily available on the thing either, because Equus was kind of a weird, like it's the equivalent of the full-size sedan now, whatever they call it, the G80, 90, they called the Equus back then with Hyundai. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they're still putting out concept cars and they still have hope for the future, but it's pretty rough terrain at the moment.
I think they'll be okay. I think they'll figure it out. There'll be some amazing lease incentives and stuff to move units along, and the dealership in Wichita, it sure is gorgeous. What they're having, at least the dealers, Hyundai dealers, invest in to open up these stores. That's a big investment for the dealers. So,
well, and I'm seeing some that are tied in with Hyundai. And when you have your standalone Genesis dealership, it gives you this luxurious more feeling than when you're kind of, pushed together with Hyundai, forcing them together.
They're forcing them to do separate dealerships now. So dealers are having to do that if they want to keep their franchises. So they have to spend the $5 or $10 million on the dealership. And it's interesting, our local dealer, Scott Hatchett's a friend of mine who bought the Hyundai franchise. I think he bought the franchise in the late 80s, early 90s when they just had the little Excel, like a total junky Econobox, like a total trash car that everybody hated, that didn't last. I mean, it was just total junk. And to see that, and then 30 years later, now he's selling 6-figure luxury cars from the same company. It's a crazy transformation.
So he saw the future, and the little glass ball, and knew Genesis was going to be okay.
I think he got really lucky, but yeah.
For now. Thanks so much for watching.